So a huge thank you to everyone who tuned in last week to hear the research from our French correspondent, Fred. He has had a massive influx of support and people praising him because of all of the information he gave us last week about Jean Luc Brunel. And what we did in the first episode, which was almost 2 hours, was cover the life history of Brunel from birth, his rise up in the modeling profession, and the challenges that came about because of his nefarious behavior. So that entire history took us to a place where we now want to go back and talk about his relationship with Epstein, how that came about, how this diabolical trio got together, Maxwell, Epstein, Jean Luc Brunel, and we're going to take it from there. And I was just telling Fred before this live stream, you know, there's all this information about the Epstein case out there, and people are rehashing the same old things, but not much has been done in the Western English-speaking world about Jean Luc Brunel. Now, speaking to Fred last week, I just sat there almost 2 hours agog because of all of the new information that I was learning from him. He is part of a team of activists in France who are just going over this thing with fine tooth combs. And I imagine tonight, again, I'm just going to be absolutely blown away by all the new information that Fred is going to kindly give us this evening. And on top of all of his brilliant research, he's just a charismatic, smiley, good vibe guy. And I think that comes across really well to the viewers. So thank you for coming back on, Fred. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to share this live stream link on all my socials. So I'm just going to ask if you could just briefly reintroduce yourself and recap what we did last week and say what we're going to just give a little summary of what we're going to go over tonight.
Absolutely. And thank you very much, Shaun, for having me here today once more. Last week was extremely interesting. Obviously, a lot of support, a lot of comments and support from your channel. So a big thanks to everyone that has been out there, you know, helping me and putting the thumbs up. It's really, really warming my heart here. And probably my favorite comment will be that someone said that if Shaun had a beard and a spectacle, black spectacle, probably that we will be looking like brothers. So I'll take that as a compliment. But anyway, going back to your questions, yeah, last week was very interesting. We had the opportunity to review Jean-Luc Brunel's career and trying to look into his story, what made the man that he has become, you know, and what was the milestones, but also the important moment in his life that has defined this character. Is a very enigmatic character. People obviously wants to understand what drove him to do what he did, or what, you know, the victim has alleged. The crime that he's been accused of are absolutely horrendous, and we need to better understand this person. We need to understand what is really, you know, the associations and how this association with Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein came about. And this is what today the continuation of these discussions is, looking at these characters, trying to understand how they fed off each other, and moving on, you know, with different stories and anecdotes, which hopefully you will enjoy.
Could you tell the people a little bit about your YouTube channel? And in the description box below this video after the live stream, I am going to put a link into your YouTube channel.
Absolutely, Shaun. Our YouTube channel is about basically pointing the fingers as these at white-collar criminals. You know, these people that are simply just getting away every single time with corruptions, with crimes, without absolutely no regards for the law, no regards for our democracy, no regards for the value that seems to be our values. So we want to, at one point, being you know, able to say enough is enough, and we want, more importantly, to provide the information that's going to allow us to hold them accountable, and more importantly, for the justice to hold them accountable. And that is the reason why we investigate cases and we do so much research.
Brilliant. So last week I was laughing about the copious amount of notes that you sent over that we are structuring these podcasts with. And tonight was an even more expanded version. I've got 14 pages, and this is a credit to the diligence of Fred and the level of detail he gets to in his research. Usually when I interview someone, they send me like a page or at most 3 pages of notes. And we've got 14. So this, these live streams are going to continue while we go over this. I've told Fred, just take your time. Don't cut any long stories short. We want all the details. That's what we're here for. The people following the Epstein case. A huge amount of the people on this channel are following the Epstein case, and it's been the biggest thing on the channel. And they really want to hear new information. So in this second section, then, we're going to start with how and when Brunel and Epstein's relationship started. And to cover that, we're going to go back to 1991 when Maxwell, after her father got whacked after Lady Ghislaine, Maxwell moved to the United States in Manhattan, New York. And that's where the mainstream media story claims that the relationship with Epstein began, and Epstein, gave her solace in a time of woe. But from our interview with Eri Ben-Menashe, we have predated that relationship to Epstein being involved in Robert Maxwell's schemes. And there's far more to it, but the mainstream media are blocking all of the intelligence agency stuff. So, all right, so we're going to go back to 1991. Take it away, Fred. Thank you.
Okay, sure. No worries. Well, basically, obviously, to answer the question, this is a question that I've been asked by so many people. And I think any person that has done some investigation on the Epstein case, I was trying to pin down the year, or at least the bulk part where actually Epstein or Jean Luc Brunel was introduced to Epstein. And as you said, we rightly so, we need to rewind a little bit and go back to 1991 when Ghislaine Maxwell left the United Kingdom following on the very controversial, obviously, death of Robert Maxwell, her father. Whether it's been whacked or not, I think that's up to to assumptions, because there's no proof out there with regards to what really and truly happened. I think you had Eri Ben-Menashe on your channel, and I think himself is very cautious about taking position on this matter, which I can actually relate. But anyway, she's in Manhattan, she's in the United States, end of 1991. And then she's not obviously going to Manhattan for no reason. She's struck a relationship with Epstein. They've been dated for quite some time. And we really need to look into this bracket of time between 1992, a year after her arrival in Manhattan in the US, and obviously the year of 2004, when during this time, Ghislaine Maxwell has been already kind of reunited with Jean Luc Brunel. And this is actually when this very toxic relationship is going to take place, because people tend to forget a little bit, but Jean Luc Brunel and Ghislaine Maxwell are extremely good friends. They are pals. They've been partying together for years. She's part of this, she's a socialite, she's a woman that likes to travel, to party. She's from the A-list, and she comes often to a fashion show in the French capital. She's been photographed at Valentino's and many other fashion shows in Paris. She's a well-known socialite, and she likes to have parties in Les Bains Douches, Le Palace, you name it. There's so many high-end nightclub in Paris. So that relationship is not just something new. It's been going on for years. They are very close friends. Let's not forget that Ghislaine Maxwell is fluent French. She speaks French. She's not only a citizen, but she speaks the language, which obviously she can relate to the culture, and she can obviously relate to Jean Luc Brunel. So the FBI, for instance, also has already looked into the flight logs. And that's really the beauty of the flight logs, because it allowed us to better understand who is where and when they are, and hopefully what they are doing. We know that on the Epstein private jet, which people have come to call the Lolita Express, the name Jean Luc Brunel is actually featured in the form of an acronym JLB, and it appears about 27 times, between 1999 and 2005. So to answer your question, when they actually met, I would say that my best guess really will be in between 1993 and 1994. That would be my best guess.
Okay, so the FBI made the link with the flight logs, like you said. I mean, you got JLB in there 27 times. And it was in 1996 that Epstein's Boeing 727 landed for the first time in Paris. So examining the flight logs from 95 to 2013 reveals that it will come back from time to time, 3 times in 97 and in 2000. So what was the deal that was struck between Epstein and Brunel?
Well, I believe this relationship, like any other relationships, take time. I don't think Epstein's going to trust Jean Luc Brunel just because he's a friend of Ghislaine Maxwell. Jeffrey Epstein is not someone, people have described him as this animal, party animal. I don't think it's really what the kind of person he was. I think he was more of a recluse, someone that likes to keep it for himself, is a very discreet person, and more importantly, has learned to be very cautious. So Jean-Luc Brunel will be an acquaintance at the beginning, and then I believe, slowly they get to know each other. They have a lot in common. Jean-Luc Brunel is Jewish. Obviously, Epstein is Jewish, and Ghislaine Maxwell is Jewish. So these are obviously like any community. You meet people from your community. There's going to be some bounds. There's going to be a lot of philosophy, a lot of understanding where you can relate to the person. And then obviously there is other center of interest. There is the interest of beautiful women, young women. I'm sure Jean-Luc Brunel and Epstein very quickly, when they got introduced, realized that they had a lot in common, so that probably have helped, building the trust that was necessary for eventually having Epstein flying into the French capital with Brunel. And we're going to be able to see in other flight logs. That's what I mentioned last week. We need to get access to other flight logs, not only the Lolita Express, but as I mentioned, there's 2 other private jets from Jeffrey Epstein. And we need to be able to see who was on board, when it occurs, where they were going, and so on and so forth. So that's what they were going. They were basically starting to flying into the capital, Ghislaine, Jeffrey and Brunel, and looking into a possibility, I think, for eventually at some stage for Jeffrey Epstein to have a base in Paris. It did not occur right away. I think they went on many trips, and I think Jeffrey Epstein saw France as a beautiful place, as a beautiful European base for him to spend some time outside of the US jurisdiction, being able to enjoy everything that, Central Europe has to offer, not only the good food, but obviously art, shopping, and then spending some time in south of France. He was landing a lot in Nice, in Marseille, but also going to Monaco on a regular basis. So he's having a good time, and he's in great company. He's obviously have access to Ghislaine Maxwell and Jean-Luc Brunel carnet address, their private book, their contact. And these guys are obviously networking in very high and mundane society. So that's absolutely perfect for him. And I think we'll develop that part of him being in Paris a bit further down in this conversation.
So a lot of people have been criticized for associating with Epstein after his first conviction. I don't have the timeline in front of me from last week, what we did, but was Brunel, the scandals surrounding him, publicly available information at the time Epstein and him met? Was it already, would Epstein have been aware of the scandal surrounding him?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all happening around the same time. But when Jean-Luc Brunel decided to leave Paris, and it's really because I think he had a lot of joker, a lot of cards that he played, and unfortunately there was just too much noise, and his reputation in the fashion industry in Paris itself was absolutely, it was terrible. Literally everybody knew what was going on, what Jean Luc Brunel was up to, and especially with the girls. A lot of photographers, a lot of people in the fashion industry complain, a lot of models complain, and obviously, as we saw last week, few documentaries that popped out. And this will not be the end of it. You know, this will carry on all the way until he actually reaches America and starting a new business with Kate Face, with the famous Next Model Management, Next Model Corporation, which he will be a small shareholder of, you know, a 25% stake in this company. But let's not forget that the money was not coming out of Jean Luc Brunel's pocket. Was coming out of Arnaud Brunel, his brother, but also from Etienne Dera, a family friend, someone that has been close to him for a long time, and more importantly, someone that was extremely interesting in the modeling agency and the fame that goes around that and all the glitter. So this is really what's happening. Brunel is leaving America because his reputation, leaving France because his reputation is completely burned. And I think, as the directors, let's not forget, he owned Karen Models. A lot of people say he was working the head of it. What does it mean? He actually owned Karen Models in Paris. So when he left, he's the owner of Karen Model Paris. But obviously, his business mainly comes from Eileen Ford, from Ford Management. And she's, after this documentary on CBS, she's pulling out. She's like, look, I'm not sending any girls to you. So the business must have been affected tremendously. And I think it was time for him to create a new opportunity and go to in a place where he was hardly known, and that was New York. He had his connections, obviously, and this is what he was planning to do, is to have a new start. And this is where Jeffrey Epstein is going to be a crucial person in his life, because we will see that, and as I mentioned last week, that the adventure with Next Management Corporation, that model agency with Kate Face, turned out pretty bad, since she found out that he was diverting all these models to Karen Models of America, which he opened in 1995. So he's working with Next Management. He's taking the best models, taking them under his umbrella with Karen Models. And then next thing he knows, he's out of business with Next Model Management. And then Karen Models is now burned because Jean-Luc Brunel's reputation, again, is all over the news, is on documentaries. Many people talk about him, and also his attitude. A lot of photographers and people that works alongside Karen Models of America remember Jean-Luc Brunel predatory attitude towards girls, and he was treating them like he used to do in Paris. Pretty bad. Very little respect. You're just on the surface, being very polite, very kind of, polished. But behind that, there is a predator, and he just simply cannot stop.
So the scope of what these guys did, the diabolical trio, is just absolutely mind-boggling. We scratched the surface when Virginia said that Epstein was boasting and joking that he'd slept with over 1,000 girls procured by Jean Luc Brunel. And these are girls from all over the world. So how did Jean Luc Brunel set up this network to procure girls from all over the world? And can you give us just to like give people the bigger picture? I mean, how broad did this expand around the globe?
Well, to understand how broad it is, you first need to understand that Jean-Luc Brunel was one of the recruiters for Epstein. I mean, the relationship, everybody knows and understand it. You know, everybody can put the dot together and understand that Epstein saw in Jean-Luc Brunel a fantastic partner, someone that is going to allow him to get his hand on young girls coming from around the world, mainly Central Europe and then Eastern Bloc. And former Eastern Bloc, and South America. The guys is traveling. The guys has the cover story, the perfect cover story to be able to transport young teenager, aspiring models right at his front door. You know, that's absolutely ideal for Epstein. Now, with regards to the scope of how big this operation is, it's probably much bigger than we can ever imagine, because, as I just said, Brunel was only one of the recruiter, one of the person that was providing girls to Epstein's, but those that knew Epstein will tell you that there was a lot of Russian girls coming to Manhattan and staying with him, you know. And as soon as these girls were landing in New York, the first number they will call was Jeffrey Epstein's number. So he had also a massive connection with Russia via Ukraine, via Odessa, via the Black Sea resorts, via all this network. We will talk about people like Listerman. These are all people involved in providing and supplying girls to Epstein, and Brunel being one of them. So when we say 1,000 girls from Brunel, I can only imagine how many girls had to go through Epstein. It's absolutely mind-blowing, Shaun.
Yeah, so there you have it. Brunel was just one of many procurers, and yeah, it is mind-blowing to think. Were there tens of thousands of victims in this case, possibly, on that basis?
Well, it's difficult to put a number on it, because to put a number on it, we will need to know exactly, you know, how many people were actually providing girls towards Epstein. He's a high net worth individual. He has built a reputation for liking young girls, liking models, beautiful girls. He likes blonde, blue eyes, thin, long-legged girls, and that's what he goes for. So the market with him will be, Jean Luc Brunel will take care of all the Scandinavian, because with his experience with carrying models, he has great connection with the models and the model world in general in Scandinavia and Sweden, Denmark, Holland. So he has access to that. But then he's going to obviously enlarge his network by starting to build relationship with Ukraine, because Ukraine is really the hub as far as sex trafficking. If you want to talk about a couple of hubs in the world about sex trafficking, Ukraine is one of them, especially Odessa with the Black Sea resorts, where all these young girls, aspiring models are coming and participate in this, this beauty contest. And remember, the first contest in Ukraine, the guys that organized it, his name has kind of slipped my mind, but he used to say, the first time he organized the show in Odessa, he said they had 2,000 girls coming just for audition, and he just had no other choice but to let them come in front of him. I'll just hand paint, but it was so much beauty and so much young girls, 14, 15, 16 years old. So I mean, the procurement was extremely easy, and obviously there is a lot of unscrupulous kind of a matchmaker. This is how Pitya, because that's his name in Russia. They don't call him Peter Listerman, they call him Pitya. And Pitya will recruit these girls out of the model agencies or out of this beauty contest and then traffic them. You will say matchmaking, but this is basically human trafficking. Let's call it for what it is, and then send them wherever the clients were, whether they are Russian oligarchs or simply, high net worth individual like Jeffrey Epstein. So that's how big this is. This is intercontinental, and the market exists because the demand exists. And that's what people need to understand. There's no market without a supply and a demand, but if the demand stops, the market will collapse.
Okay, so if we go to 1998, Epstein was having some kind of trouble in Ohio, Columbus, after being there for 10 years, replacing Arthur Shapiro and working for Les Wexner. So was that, the motive to acquire Little St. James in the USVI for $8 million before adding another $12 million for Great St. James Island? Because if you look at Maxwell, she was researching maritime law, and it's like they were trying to create an entity that was outside of any legal jurisdiction so they could do these things. And there was no one to answer to.
Well, you see, it's a very good question you're asking, Shaun, with regards to the process of buying Little St. James, which occurs in 1998. And it's not the only one, because he's going to spend $8 million on investing in Little St. James. And then later on, he's going to add another $12 million to get hold of the Great St. James Island. So he's going to buy both islands. Now, what was the reason behind it is not really important yet. What's important is to understand how, for someone that just barely made a career at Bear Stearns, 10 years later, spending in Ohio, Columbus, working for Les Wexner, how this guy suddenly is able to buy, millions of dollars islands, back to back. So that means that obviously it's saying something. It's saying that the money was flowing and was flowing seriously. And that's really why he bought this island, because simply he had the cash and this money needed to be invested. I mean, anybody that have studied a little bit the Ohio Columbus network from the Limited all the way down to New Albany and what, Lexner's and all these cohorts were doing there, it was a massive money laundering operation. I truly personally believe, and again, it's an allegation, but I think Shapiro was taken out because he was under investigation by the FBI. And surely they found out that he was opening shell company after shell company, and obviously money was coming in and out, and it was a lot of dealing with the city council and obviously the city of Columbus itself. Contracts, money was exchanged, contract was signed. There was a lot of corruption with the police and within the governments. And it was only a matter of time before, someone get hurt. And the first I got hurt was the poor Arthur Shapiro. And this is when Epstein came in to replace Shapiro, because Epstein was introduced to actually Les Wexner by, can't remember his name. He was kind of a mogul from the insurance world. I think his name was Meyer, but correct me if I'm wrong, please. It's okay to be wrong. And then what we saw is, rapidly Jeffrey Epstein's going to take control of the operation and is going to be fully entrusted with full POA from Les Wexner. So that means that these two had a plan, and I think definitely Jeffrey Epstein knew exactly how to handle Les Wexner's, what Les Wexner wanted. I think the point that they had in common was the love for Israel. I know that Les Wexner has spent a lot of money with the mega group, which, obviously support, and they are great lobbyists in Washington, D.C. And I think this has really simply probably solidified their relationship. The foundation was created, the Wexner Foundation was created, and then certainly right after that, a lot of money was poured out of the country and then went onto accounts and offshore accounts, not only in the US Virgin Islands, but across basically the Caribbean, from many, many different banks, many different Cayman Islands, Antigua, you name it, they had accounts everywhere. And I'm sure you've seen recently, a day or two ago, some documents have come out from the court, from the United States Virgin Island court, with the district attorney, the attorney general and the assistant attorney general asking and subpoena and providing subpoena for so many financial entities. So they are doing what should have been done from day one. If you have any doubt and you can't understand what's going on because it's too big, just follow the money.
And that's what we've been trying to do, is follow the money. We saw 75 million was given to Epstein by Conrad Black. And that's really causing problems for him right now. The Epstein estate is valued over 600 million right now, I believe. And we got money that came in from Wexner. Properties were just given to Epstein by Wexner. So just listening to what you just said then, are you saying that Epstein never had any ability to make any money of that proportion, and that he was a cardboard cutout and all this money was given to him by these much bigger players?
Well, you can't say that, and I can't say that because Epstein has one skill. He's a con man. That's what Epstein is. There's no need to go around the pot and around the bush. He's a con man, and he's con himself through many different life and in different ways in different places in the world. And I'm quite confident in saying that when he left Hoffenberg, after the scandal of Tower Financial, which by the way was a massive, massive scandal. I mean, you know, you could easily compare it to Bernie Madoff. You know, this is not small. This is a real big scandal. This is a massive money laundering and skimming and a Ponzi scheme. And I would be very surprised if Jeffrey Epstein did not put and set some money aside for himself. So to answer your question, he definitely arrived in Ohio, not broken, you know, not empty handed, but how much money has he made? Did he have access to that money? We know that the investigation that started against Offenberg in New York had the name of Jeffrey Epstein. And I think Offenberg clearly stated that the day of the court, the day where they were supposed to hear the case, the name of Jeffrey Epstein had disappeared from the documents. So what it says is already here, he's getting away somehow with crimes, and he was right deep in there. Now, had he access to the money? Did he make money? I think the USVI investigation is going to provide these answers.
Have you asked any questions to Hoffenberg?
No, I'd love to talk to him because I have different stories which I've heard, which I'd like to corroborate with him. But hopefully this is something that we will be able to do soon. I saw it on Nexus not so long ago, but yeah, he's the poor guys. I mean, he's a con, you know, he went for it, he got caught. You know, he played fair, you know, he done the time, he served the time, fair enough. That, you know, there's nothing to say about that. He's served his debt to society, but I think he's a little bit bitter knowing that Epstein has kind of got away with it and is probably wondering what was going on. But I think he's got much more answers, you know, that he could provide us. But he's obviously careful because, you know, who's dealing with it.
Yeah, I'll put you in touch with him then. Perhaps we could actually get him on the Zoom down the road. And
it's not white wine, just for the audience. So I know we're in France, but we do drink water too.
And this isn't vodka. So yeah, I agree entirely. Epstein was a con man. The Towers financial thing definitely put some money in his pocket, and he got a pass from the authorities on that, which shows some kinds of behind the scenes relationship he had with very powerful people, maybe intelligence agencies. But you got people like Wexner then. For Wexner, who was worth a multiple of Epstein, this guy, you know, is obviously a well-practiced throat slitter, psychopath to have that kind of wealth, in my opinion. And for Wexner to turn around and say, you know, Epstein picked my pocket, I'm a victim of Epstein, I think that's a smokescreen. What do you think about that?
It's hilarious. Simply hilarious. I mean, look, you know, Wexner come from a humble background, you know, and they grew that business, you know, that company, that famous Limited, and they grew it, and there's no way they could move it to the billion zone, you know, in such a small amount of time without being involved in some much more shady deal, you know. So my belief is that Wexner knew the mob. That's my, and I allege that, you know, for lawyers, don't come after me, but I'm alleging this, saying that Wexner had a connection, a very, very strong connection with the mob, you know, with La Cosa Nostra. And Ohio Columbus is definitely a massive logistic hub. You know, you're just around the corner from many big cities in the United States. So the drugs is coming, the guns are coming, a lot of things is going on, and certainly a lot of money is available. So you need to, you know, obviously they're gonna have to launder that money somewhere. And if they can, you know, have someone like Wes Lexner that has a bit more knowledge about the financial world via Shapiro at the time, and eventually later on with Epstein, the ability to take that dirty money and to move this toxic asset to, you know, offshore, and doing it in trust, because he's from Ohio, Wexner. He's not going to go anywhere. He tried to live in New York. He didn't like it. He's not interested in New York. He's Ohio. He feels safe in Ohio. He's got his gang there. He's got a police protection. He's got everyone around him, and that's what Wexner likes. He's not an exuberant kind of person at all. This is not Epstein. Wexner is a well put together guy, and he knows how to keep his mouth shut. That's why he works with the mob, and the mob trusts him. So I believe this is really that relationship, that toxic relationship in between Mob, Wexner, and Jeffrey Epstein that has started to move a lot of dirty assets, a lot of dirty money. And obviously Jeffrey Epstein, as a con artist, will know the principles of being a con artist, which is to protect yourself, to make sure you have the right connections, and also make sure you are authorized in doing what it is that you do. Because if the mob doesn't give you the green light, you will be the next Shapiro.
Yeah, so we have just got to the part where Epstein has bought the islands and he's incorporating Jean Luc Brunel into the conspiracy. So could you expand on Epstein's three fundamental rules and how Brunel fit into that?
Yeah, sure. I think what I can do is probably to bringing into some people that are extremely interesting, and they will be brought into the pictures, and that will confirm exactly this relationship. Because before talking about this relationship, you know, we need to make sure we're able to corroborate stories and have enough information to clarify, but to assert the fact that Jean Luc Brunel and all these young girls, these teenagers, these minors were actually spending quite a bit of time on Little St. James, you know, under the hospitality of Jeffrey Epstein. And the person that have actually came forward with such informations are a couple, a South African couples, and their name is Mile and Katie Alexander. They were first interrogated at a very early stage, but they refused. They didn't want to really get involved. These are people that were recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell. Actually, Ghislaine Maxwell flew to South Africa to interview them, and then they got the job basically on the spot pretty much. Next things they know, they find themselves on a private jet, or let's say on a plane. I don't have the details of the logs on that, but anyway, they end up in Manhattan. Ghislaine Maxwell will welcome them, and next thing they know, they are basically working in dabble with the current crew that Epstein has at his service on Upper Street Manhattan Villa. And then eventually, after they've learned enough of what Epstein's like, what he wants, they will be informed before going onto the island that this job was all about discretion. It's all about keeping your mouth shut. You're not aware, you haven't seen anything, you know nothing. You're just here to take care of the place, taking care of the island, and that's what your job's gonna be. And they're gonna say yes to that, and they're gonna be flying into Little St. James and being there for quite some time. I think they will be staying there, I can't remember the dates really, but they were there for at least 6 or 7 years, you know, between 1998, 99 up the way to 2004. So they knew Epstein very well. They got to know him. They knew the rules. They knew what was going on the islands. And this is exactly the reason why the USVI wants to interrogate and subpoena them, asking basically the South African government for judicial assistance in order to be able to interrogate them and confirm what was truly going on. Now, we got a little bit of information. They've spoken over the years. They've given some information about what was going on the island. First, to go along with the question that you were asking me, yes, Epstein was using, Jean-Luc Brunel was using model agency. So these girls were coming under the disguise of model agency. They were coming every month. Epstein will come on a monthly basis for 10 days or 7 days. He will stay on the island, spend the time that he needed to spend there, and each time he will come with different girls. So if you calculate the amount of time, the amount of months, and the amount of girls, there were at least 10 to sometimes 15 girls at the same time on the islands. And I think Miles especially did say that he was obviously feeling uncomfortable with the fact that young teenagers were walking naked on the islands. You know, they were literally bare clothes. They had nothing. They were wearing nothing. And this obviously was quite shocking for him. But yet again, there was, you know, a contract and understanding between this South African couple and Jeffrey Epstein. Discretion, do not talk, and more importantly, the most important rule, never go into Jeffrey Epstein dungeon. his bedroom and his massage area was absolutely private. And when he was there, you know, they were not allowed to go into that main house. So there's so many things, but I think they were very cautious about talking. And I think that the subpoena hopefully will be successful. The South African government will see the value in having these guys, you know, providing a testimony under oath so that we can find out a little bit more about what was truly going on the islands of Little St. James.
So in the chat then, David Donoe has said that they would have had to have flown to the island of St. Thomas to then fly on to Little St. James, likely by helicopter. Was that how it? That's how it went. And yeah, go on.
Yes, sorry to interrupt, Shaun. Yes, absolutely. That's exactly how it was done. Some of the girls, so everybody's arriving at St. Thomas. And then from there was various private company. I think Epstein was very close to one company in particular, and I think we saw it being subpoenaed as well. But they're going to be obviously flying with helicopter mainly from St. Thomas onto Little St. James. We know that further down the line, Ghislaine Maxwell got a helicopter pilot license. So she was also flying a private helicopter that Epstein owned. So at the beginning, they started to use an agency, a company, a transportation company, and then later on, they will use their own helicopters. But also at the time, for some of the girl, it seems from the testimonies and from what I could gather from Mile and Kathy Alexanders, the housekeepers of Epstein on the island, is that Epstein had on several occasions, he's asked actually Mile to go with the boat and actually organizing, you know, this kind of a transfer of young girls from St. Thomas to the island, but to do it really discreetly and via boat, and something that Mile, I would say, refused categorically and said it was not comfortable in getting involved with that kind of logistic for that particular purpose. So definitely he knew what was going on and he didn't want to get involved. Good on him.
Another question's coming for you in the chat from Romain Zabo. I was just going to ask if there was a South African connection. What did Epstein, Maxwell, etc. come to South Africa for?
Well, I mean, on this particular case, it was about recruiting South African. You know, South African. I'm married to a South African woman, and I lived in South Africa for 5 years, so I can talk about it a little bit at least. And I think that there is in the let's say in the high net worth individual worlds and the billionaires or multi-millionaire kind of worlds, a lot of people will hire mainly boatmen, captains, people that basically are able to handle yachts, boats, crews. They speak fluent English, they're not expensive, and more importantly, they know how to keep their mouth shut. So they have that reputation, and you will find around the world, if you go to Saint-Tropez or Dubai or places like that, you will find a lot of South African on this luxurious yacht, and they provide excellent service. And as I said, they're native English speakers, so that makes it easier, and they're not as expensive as if you were to hire a crew from the United States. So I think that's also the reason why they were going there. I know that also Ghislaine Maxwell had friends, good friends in South Africa from back in London, and the rest probably is worth investigating. But I think, you know, as I say, you know, we cannot fall into the trap of going into so much details that we actually gonna be so our nose into the frame that we won't be able to see the entire picture. It's like art, you know, you got to step back a little bit if you want to appreciate what it is.
So you mentioned fake visas. At that time, did Epstein have all of the local authorities governing those islands bought off, do you think?
Well, exactly. I mean, that's the point that I'm making. Although I'm like everyone, everybody's excited about these subpoenas, and we saw them coming out, going after Leon Black and all these guys, you know, so yeah, this is good. But in the other hand, we must ask ourselves two questions. One is, first of all, that Epstein was was an offender, sexual offender. So he had to register on the United States Virgin Island. He needed to register. He had a lawyer on the island in St. Thomas. And it was just, he didn't care. He didn't want to go every month or everything, whatever, just go there and basically tell the people, tell the government, tell the police where he was, what was he doing, what was his activities, all that. He didn't comply with that at all. And I believe somehow, somewhere, there must have been some kind of understanding between the authorities of the time and obviously Jeffrey Epstein. With money, you can buy a lot of silence. So for me, to swallow the fact that the US Virgin Island did not know what was Epstein doing on this island for such a long period of time, it's absolutely ludicrous. They knew about it. Someone definitely kept it down. Some money must have been exchanged. I'm not accusing everybody, obviously, because that wouldn't be fair on those that are trying to do a good job today. But back in the days, something was definitely not right, and it's definitely worth investigating. Yes.
You just said Leon Black, and I think I said Conrad Black earlier, so I want to take that back. I made a mistake. I did not mean Conrad, I meant Leon. Correction. All right, so you just talking about the mechanics of the trafficking on the island.
That's right.
So we've got also Brunel's MC2 agency and girls being brought into America. So I can imagine it's far easier to buy off the authorities on these islands. How is this pipeline able to, produce all these girls and have them just coming in and out of the country, in and out of America without? I know how hard it is to get, a visa for certain things. So
yeah. Well, you see, the biggest question surrounding the Epstein affairs, and probably the biggest hurdle that Epstein had, and that's why Jean Luc Brunel was so important in his operation, is the logistics. Everything surrounding this Epstein affairs, it goes around and goes back to logistics. How do you organize such a traffic without having absolutely every single aspect of this puzzle absolutely in place, well managed, really into control and in safe hands? So they needed to have people that organize the invitations, need obviously letters from the parents. You're going to move a 12, 13, 14 years old kid out of Central Europe. First of all, you're going to have to provide some serious documentations. I personally believe that is the reason why Epstein was always flying with his assistants. There was obviously adult women or young women taking care of younger girls. So it's less, it's less apparent that a traffic is going on. It's going to be friends, family, and then of course the MC squared model agency is going to provide that cover story, which is going to be providing basically and allowing Jean Luc Brunel to apply for touristic visa, whereby through the agency, they will be able to get a glimpse from an educational point of view, understanding what it is to be a model in the United States. I mean, at the time, it was not as hard as it is today. There was probably flexibilities, and let's not forget that Brunel has, at that moment in time, 3 agencies, one in Miami, MC Squared, but obviously he has an office in Miami, New York, and Tel Aviv in Israel. So one of these countries is facilitating the visas, because these girls are coming, from my sources, they confirm they're all coming under touristic visa. And according to the United States law, if you're coming under touristic visa, there's absolutely no way that you should be allowed to work. And that's probably from my investigation shows, and from also some testimonies from Maritza Vasquez that used to work for Jean Luc Brunel in the Miami office. She confirmed there was 2 people in charge, 2 girls in charge, one in the office in Miami and then other girls in the office of New York. And Epstein will have some of these girls, the girls that he wanted, he will secure the visa, asking Brunel to take care of that. And I think Maritza Vasquez recalled a few incidents where Epstein was absolutely losing it with Jean Luc Brunel, because at that time, Jean Luc Brunel is having a lot of fun. He's got a lot of cocaine up his nose because he's a recreational coke addict. And he's definitely, sometimes, just been a little bit evasive and probably not as professional as Epstein would have liked to. So probably made a mistake. Probably some of the visa was probably rejected, and Epstein probably got pretty mad with Jean-Luc. So there was argument about it, and definitely Epstein is someone that is extremely disciplined with regards to this kind of thing, because he knew that this will attract attention and a hit on him.
A couple more questions have come in for you in the chat, Fred. So David Dornaway has asked, did Brunel have a private jet? Did he own a Boeing 727 with a rear door like Peter Nygaard and Trump Airlines? The CIA proved these could make drops in Vietnam.
Oh, that's a weird question. Did he have the private jets? Yeah, he had 3 of them. And he had, obviously, they were all obviously made to his liking, so obviously decorations and so on. I mean, these were extremely luxurious private jets. But yet again, to talk about, I've never been in this jets. We saw a couple of pictures. All I can say, he has jets, and that's all we need to know. Whether he had so he could drop people from the rear is slightly irrelevant to the inquiry.
So he had his own Lolita Express then, did he? Were there like beds and stuff in his planes, or?
Absolutely, beds, couch. He had even actually a folding bed in the back of the Lolita Express. So if he wanted to take a nap, or if he wanted to take a girl, which is like something that he liked to do, so he will basically go in the back and then basically fold back the bed and then spend some time there. But sometimes he was, if you read some of the depositions, Jean Luc Brunel will have intercourse and horrendous sex acts in front of everybody in the main cabin. He's I don't think when Epstein is in his environments, and especially if the trio, the Jean Luc Brunel and the Ghislaine Maxwell and the Epstein trio is together, this is a very toxic relationship. These guys are absolutely lunatics, and when they come together, it seems that anything goes. And that's, I think, when you listen to Virginia and other testimonies from other survivors, you will see that these guys felt completely above the law. And don't forget, you're up there in the skies, there's no jurisdiction, you are in international airspace, whatever goes up there, stay up there.
So when you said you got that from the depositions, then Jean Luc Brunel was an exhibitionist. Are you saying you got it from Virginia's testimony?
From that, but also from people that have worked with him as well. They always describe him, as I say, and I mentioned to you last week, I'm speaking to people that have worked with him for more than 30 years. So people that have worked with him in France, but also that have made the move and actually worked in the United States with him. So these are people that know him from a very different, more personal perspective. So they know the characters, and one thing in common, one common thread that you always find when speaking to these people, these sources, is that Jean Luc Brunel was definitely not an angel. That's the best way they can put it. Do not forget that we are speaking to old people. I mean, Jean Luc Brunel is 73, 74. We're not talking to young people. When you're talking about people that I work with Jean Luc Brunel, it's not like I'm speaking with a 30, 40 years old guy where I can a little bit get offline and, I'm starting to get a little bit more, personal and more precise about the information. I think, this kind of generation of people are extremely loyal. You see Ghislaine Maxwell, everybody was waiting for, this deposition 2016. We're going to find out about a lot of things. We found out nothing. We found out about what we already knew, that she's not going to talk and she's going to remain extremely loyal to Jeffrey Epstein. Well, for Brunel, it's the same. The people that I work for Jean Luc Brunel are extremely loyal. They're not trying to cover for him, but they're going to tell you that it was a different era, it was a different epoch. And during that particular time, a lot of things happened that today will not be acceptable. So he was a bad guy, but also I think that a lot of these people that were close to him did not see the the second face of Jean Luc Brunel. The only people that can truly talk about Jean Luc Brunel is actually his victims, the people that have actually suffered at his hands, and people that can see, I have seen the monster in Jean Luc Brunel. And that's really a skills that he had. He has these two faces, the ability to be a gentleman, well-educated, sophisticated, well-spoken Frenchman, and he knew how to charm and manipulate people. I mean, he knew how to pick on the right girls. He knew what girls he could work with, what girl he could abuse, what girl Epstein wanted. All that design information, he was intelligent enough, he was knowledgeable enough to be able to perpetrate this crime and to enable Jeffrey Epstein to abuse these girls, because he was aware of it, he was part of it. Now, how far the rabbit goes, we don't know, but we definitely know that he was in the know.
I want to give a huge credit to the victims. In the description box below this video, we've got the links to Maria Farmer's Twitter and Virginia's Twitter, and it's great to see that Virginia, her Twitter followers are now in the 6 figures, and that's just giving her an even more powerful voice to hound these bastards with, because when she tweets now, it sometimes makes headline news over here in the UK, and that's great to see that her tweets are being amplified around the world, calling these scumbags out. All right, so you got a question from David Simon. Do you think that Epstein and the island were sacrificed to divert attention from a bigger or maybe a new location? So I imagine that's in the context of if this was a huge trafficking operation that's still ongoing, perhaps.
Yes. To answer this question, I will start. I'm going to unpack in maybe 3 segments. The first segment will be purely a geographical segment, which will basically confirm that the Great St. James Island was built not for the to create more to spend more money or just to for the pleasure of it, but it was actually to provide that fences, that geographical fences that will forbid tourists to be able to see truly what was going on Little St. James. So that's one part. That's what Great St. James was built for. Can you just remind me the questions? I've lost a little bit.
Yeah, he was basically saying, was the island sacrificed, the Epstein Islands, were they sacrificed because, to take the heat away or to disguise that there was a bigger secret location somewhere else?
Well, I personally, that, the final countdown for Jeffrey Epstein was a plan that he already had in motion from years 2006, 2007, which was to split his time in between the US Virgin Islands and Paris. So the news here, to answer your question, is that the final destination for Jeffrey Epstein was actually Paris. And that's exactly what Epstein wanted to do. He absolutely adored Paris. He loves art and he loves, everything about Paris. And he feels somehow protected in Paris. He has this network of very high, not only net worth individual, but politicians, and he's well respected. He has a lot of money, and when you have a lot of money in Paris, and more importantly, you're into young girls, you're gonna make very quickly a lot of friends. So that was the plan. So did he sacrifice Little St. James? No. See, Little St. James is just an element part of his logistic, but the master plan was to retire. Let's forget that he was 60 some years, so he was starting to get tired of the parties. He was still involved, but at a much more lower scale. We know that, by the way, by various testimonies and interviews that Gabriel, the Franco-Brazilian butler of Epstein, the kind of jack of all trade. He'll do anything from cooking to be a driver for Steve Bannon, which keep on denying that he was there. That's ludicrous. Of course you were there, Steve. Stop talking nonsense. Anyway, what we're looking at is someone that simply was looking for a place where he feels safe, where he feels surrounded with friends, and more importantly, protected. And that was Paris.
Just bringing Maxwell and her skill set into this a bit, then we've got a question come in, And I've tried to research this and come up with various stories. I know at the beginning of Maxwell's TED Talk, they lay out all of her qualifications, and I believe that TED Talk is still available online if people want to watch that. But David has asked, where did Maxwell get her training? Did she fly a military helicopter? Was she trained in Israel, the UK, the US? Where did she get a submarine license? Who paid for the same? I believe she also had a license to operate on underwater robots as well.
That is correct. Yes, from what we can see, what we can read, and various information we gathered is that she had this license in to fly small helicopters, not combat helicopters, and whether she was taught in Israel, I do not know. I don't have this information. My view on it is that there's absolutely, it doesn't make sense. You know, there's no reason for her to go back to Israel, where there is now really a lot of fun for a girl like her, you know, that likes to be the center of attentions and part of a flyaway from big parties and, you know, part of being part of the glittering world of Hollywood or whatever it was, you know. So no, I think she just learned spending time probably on the islands. I would say that probably would be a best guess, but I don't have that information at end, so I'm only speculating.
Next question then is, did Epstein and Maxwell have connections into the mafia in Marseille? Did Jean Luc Brunel have enterprises in Marseille?
Yes, they did, yeah.
They did, okay.
Did, but I'm not going to talk about that.
Yeah, I was thinking that. All right, so going back to
our only one life. Huh? You get probably 6 of them like cats, you know, I'll take it. I'm going to take it easy on that one.
Yeah, you won't see me do any videos on the Sinaloa cartel either. All right, so girls were getting piled up in the apartments in New York, and this brings into it Mark Epstein. What are your thoughts on him?
I think I'm going to have to be very honest, and he's probably not going to like this one, but I think he's lying his head off. You know, he's lying from day one, you know, and I think the whole story about the death of his brother, and obviously it's not a nice thing to say because his brother died. Are we going to miss him? Personally, not really, and I'm sure the victims won't. But as far as Mark Epstein, at the end of the day, if he's innocent and he's missing his brother and he feels that really there's an injustice, why not? Now, my personal view on this is that this is not the whole story, because in order to believe that he was absolutely unaware of what was going on, and that he just lost his brother and is absolutely, you know, devastated by this news, and he wants to get justice for his brother, then you need to forget about the fact that he had building in New York accommodating. He owns actually buildings, apartments in New York that was accommodating a lot of the girls of Epstein. So that was just around the corner of the former villa house, Epstein's house, you know, East Manhattan. So we know that Mark was involved in somehow, somewhere. I won't say that himself was probably enjoying the fruits of what was really going on, or part of this trafficking, but for me to say that he was not aware, it's extremely hard, because how can you not be aware? You have people like a hood barrack coming to your building where you own apartments. How would you not be aware of that? You know, and if there was any incident or problem with the apartments, he will be the first guy on call. So now I think Mark has been playing a very clever game in a certain way. I think he is playing the devastated brother, and absolutely was pushing for an inquiry on the death of his brother, but I think he knows exactly what happened and why it happened and when it happened. So I'm not going to feel sorry, unfortunately, for him. And I think that definitely he should have been one of the first one to be brought to a conference room, you know, where he should have been interviewed on the oath, you know, because he knows a lot of things for sure. They were not close. Huh? Epstein and Mark were not very close, but they were still doing things together. Yeah.
Okay, so we're into the second hour now, and if people have jumped on the live stream, we are discussing the relationship between Epstein, Maxwell, and Jean Luc Brunel, and how the diabolical trio got together and the infrastructure that they built. So girls were being pipelined over to the islands. They were piling up in apartments in New York. Epstein was cherry picking them. Brunel, of course, has got this charismatic professional persona that he's showing the public, but behind the scenes, he's got this dark serial predator reality, and that has left all of these victims behind him. You know, we've heard the heartbreaking testimonies of Virginia, Maria, and numerous of the other victims. But this also brings us to the, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Thusia Hoosman. Is that the correct? Thusia Hoosman?
Tisha Hoosman from Holland. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So what's her story?
Well, her story is a real sad story, actually. It's a story where trust has been broken because she was part of the model agency in Belgium. I mean, Holland and Belgium is just around the corner. And her agency basically sent her out. They sent her out to do some work in Paris with Karen models. And Jean Luc Brunel was obviously the recruiter, the model scout at the time. And what the agency did is they told Tisha that it was okay to stay and to spend time at Avenue Arche at Jean Luc Brunel's home in Paris. And she found that extremely bizarre because it's really unusual. And she felt like this obviously you're a young girl. What would you do with a director or, you know, the recruiting? The directors of an agency staying at his apartment, you're a young lady, doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyway, the agencies in Belgium, as the agency, you know, confirmed that Jean Luc Brunel was really someone extremely important, someone that's going to give her business, someone that's going to basically boost a career. And that was always the kind of the golden nuggets, if you will. You know, this is where basically you're giving hope to a young lady, telling her this guy is going to take you to where you need to be. So anyway, reluctantly, she made her way for spending, I think, a week or 10 days. And Tisha might correct me for the period of time. I don't have all the details, but she ended up basically staying at Jean Luc Brunel. And there's Jean Luc Brunel during the day, you know, it's kind of a recovering from the previous evening where he took too much coke and too much champagne, and trying to actually put some work and have some work done. But as soon as the night comes in, then obviously everybody's kind of coming back to the apartment, Avenue Arche, which is literally around the corner, a block away from where Karen Model's agency is located. In the 8th district, the 14th district of Paris. So again, this is a lifestyle that he has. He has money. He's gathered this circle of close friends, you know, like the Lafleur, Vesano. These are really absolutely nasty bunch of people that have absolutely no problem in being there because they have money. And more importantly, Brunel has the girl. Tisha is going to find herself in this circle for quite a while. I think that some work, some shooting must have happened. She might have at least done some work, but every single night, Jean Luc Brunel will probably try to get her way with her. She's young. I think it was in 1998. So it was really one of the last years Jean Luc Brunel was in France before going to the United States. And I think the story will end that she will be brought in Jean Luc Brunel's room. She has been drugged. She remembers her legs feeling really flaky. The vision starting to get really blurred. And next thing she knows is that she's lying down on this bed with this man on top of her. And then a few hours later, probably, or in the morning, she will probably wake up realizing that she's been abused and taken advantage of. So that's really what Tisha Hoosman, I think, experienced here. There's probably more details, but I don't think it's relevant. You know, I think she's gone through way enough. She's been extremely brave, you know, on many occasions. She's not been shy to tell her story. She went back in Paris, you know, looking for back on the track of the 20 Avenue Foch. She went back to where she was abused. And she also mentioned something extremely important, that when she was at Brunel's house, that she saw a lot of young girls. Some of them were just above age, but some of them were, you know, questionably not of age, and they were speaking with Russian accent, Eastern Europe accents, and they were spending their nights and their evening, and they were actually staying at Brunel's home. So definitely this was a kind of a place where the girls go and be taken out to nightclub, taken out for party. They are brought back for after parties in Jean Luc Brunel's home. If they are not going along with the plan, well, they will spice up the drinks to make sure that they get what they want from these girls. So this was a very sad time. This was a very shameful time for the modeling industry, because this occurs, and it occurs a lot. Unfortunately, I would like to say that it's not only Jean Luc Brunel. It is only Jean Luc Brunel, sorry, but it's really across the modeling industry. I'm investigating at least 2 more modeling industry as we speak, and I'm actually getting exactly the same stories. It was just common practice. It was DSP, basically. This is what these guys were doing.
Maybe this question will segue us into Wexner, because I know we're going to go there in a minute. The question for you, Fred, is there evidence that Jean Luc and Wexner met at the same conferences or fashion shows?
They are definitely met, because I find it very, I don't have the evidence. It's a very good question, because I've been looking for that for quite some time, to link Jean Luc Brunel and Wexner. But Brunel is a small fish, for Wexner. And I'm sure that Jeffrey Epstein is going to make sure that that connection is not made. You see, this is different leagues, and you don't mix in this, if you're a billionaire, you're a billionaire. You don't hang around with Jean Luc Brunel. You don't need Jean Luc Brunel. You have a Jeffrey Epstein for that, to make it happen. So all we know is Jean Luc Brunel was never scared of busting the name of Victoria's Secret, like Jeffrey Epstein, like Ghislaine Maxwell. When they were into their recruitment period, the word Victoria's Secret will come out very easily, very easily. It was I will make you meet, I will take you to the show, you will meet Les Wexner, you will meet the recruiter, Jeffrey Epstein. So their story was, just a complete, it's a complete lie, complete fabricated lie, just to lure these girls into Epstein's hands.
You're being asked if you know where Jean Luc Brunel is hiding out right at this moment tonight, and also how he continues to run his businesses.
Well, yeah. Well, he's not here for sure. He's not in my home. Because if I was here, it'd be a different story. But look, there's different source with different stories, so it's not easy. And I'm really not a believer in gossips, So the last location we had was that he was in the eastern side of Paris. This was confirmed by different sources, and we know that he has some family in Chantilly, a very posh neighborhood of Paris, and he also have most of his family in the center part of Paris, in a place we call Auvergne. So this is where he originally come from, and a lot of people that I know him from his childhood still live there. And so he is in France. There is no doubt about it. We've looked into, at the beginning, especially in 2019, when we started looking into it, and many newspapers wanted to interrogate him. Obviously, he was spotted. He was spotted with a Portuguese telephone number. So his WhatsApp number was linked with a Portuguese number, which I found quite unusual, but somewhere, somehow, it kind of makes sense, because of this connection with Brazil and Portugal. And I think that there is definitely probably worth investigating, might be a link with Portugal as a plan B. And we saw it as Portugal been harboring a lot of these criminals that come to France to hide under the protection of some of our elites. And eventually, when the heat gets a little bit too high, then it tends to go to Portugal. We saw that with Nexium, when one of the members that has recently been convicted, been flying from out of France, going to Portugal on hiding. So we're looking into it. I'm not going to say more than that with regards to Portugal, but we haven't pinpointed or geolocated him where we can say we can go and knock at his door. Not at this stage, unfortunately.
Nicola Graham has asked for Brunel's birth surname. I believe we started out last week with that, but I'll let you remind her.
Well, it's been discovered that Jean Luc Brunel's family name before they immigrated in France was Ben Chamoul. Ben Chamoul, probably from a North African Jewish name, you know, a Sephardic name, but a lot of them changed their name when they moved into France. And as I say, you know, being a Jewish person back, you know, around that time during the after war and the immigration, the exodus out of Algeria, Tunisia, and so on, a lot of them thought that it was for the safety to change their name as well. So again, you know, and I want to be very clear. I know people are interested by this kind of he's Jewish or his name is Ben Shamul. I know that, you know, I don't eat of that bread because there's so much opportunities and we don't want to fall under this trap, the pitfall that our governments have prepared for us, which is to create that divisions on every aspect of our life, to put the Christians against the Muslim or, you know, the blacks against the white. It's just never end. It's a very schizophrenic society, and it only is because we allow it to happen. Let's not go down that road. There's nothing in there for us. We are the numbers, we're in powers, we're in charge, and we're going to make sure these people are held accountable, whether they're Jewish, Muslim, it's irrelevant.
Tristan McGregor has asked if they were procuring girls from Asia.
Yes, actually, some, but in terms of the quantities and from what we can understand relating to Jeffrey Epstein's appetite, he was not big in Asians or anything outside of the Scandinavian kind of look, you know. But if she was extremely pretty, like South American, if they're extremely pretty and they're brunette, you will go along with it. So yes, there was some definitely some girls coming from Asia. I'm actually looking into Brunel spending a lot of time in Hong Kong, but I won't say more than that because it's still an ongoing investigation.
Okay, in the chronology then, we're in 1988, and we've gone over, you know, how the girls were procured. They were given false promises of being models. And then there was just this huge pipeline and Epstein was cherry picking. So going back to 1998 then, business documents identified Epstein as president along with Wexner of the New Albany Company. Epstein owned the house on King George Drive in New Albany from 1994 to 2007, when he gave it back to Wexner, whilst Wexner already gave him the former Villard House in Upper Manhattan, New York. What do you have to say on that?
Well, basically, is, you know, as I was saying earlier, you know, there was the building up of a very, very close relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Les Wexner, and for Les Wexner to say that, you know, he entrusted Epstein, and Epstein kind of took advantage of him. You know, it said it all. You know, these people will say anything to dissociate themselves from Epstein's, and any single person that has been interrogated to talk and to explain themselves about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein's are extremely cautious about and still kind of incriminate him and say, oh, if we knew, or, you know, we will obviously never have been with him. He took a lot of money, could not be trusted. But yet again, you've given a full power of attorney to these guys, which you only met, you know, a few years. So what motivated you to entrust fully? What was the guarantee that was provided to Les Wexner that Jeffrey Epstein is not going to fly with a book and the money? There must have been a guarantee. And I think the only guarantee that I can find that can really stand ground, it is the intelligence relationship and connection between Jeffrey Epstein, Les Wexner, and the Israeli Mossad. There's no other way I can explain it, because we are talking about the mega group, and I've seen some wonderful speaker like you know, Ryan Dawson and many people that have deepened, really went really deep into this research, and even yourself. So you know, there's nothing to add. We know what they are about. We know from the Bronfman all the way to today's mega group, you know, this outfit is not out there for the best interest of the United States, but for the interest of, unfortunately, of foreign countries. And Les Wexner, which we saw via the foundation promoting the war in Iraq, you know, we saw Epstein, obviously, and one of the person that knows Epstein very well told me, do not forget, and let me tell you something, Jeffrey Epstein was someone extremely racist, not to a degree that is just like, a bad discussions in a pub that goes wrong. We're talking about fundamentally racist. So that's just give you a good idea of, the state of mind and these people, what do they talk after work and what they're actually doing with all this stew of money. Are they actually trying to do some good, or are they trying to actually, and they have a plan for themselves, but also a plan for the world. And we really need to look into that, because time has come and we are running out of time. Our forefathers were absolutely miserable. They had no education. They didn't know what was going on with the world, and they have no way to communicate from someone to the next country, even to the next city. Now, we've been given over the past 100 years the ability, the chance, the privilege to access not only educations, but also recently the internet, that provide us with basically the possibility to have an intellectual army, people that can investigate, people that can exchange ID, evidence, proof, you name it. This has never occurred once in the history of mankind. We have a fantastic choice, and it's going to be extremely hard to explain to our great grandchildren that we couldn't do anything about what is currently going on in the world. How come we have gone so bad? How things could have gone so wrong that our kids can be abused, trafficked around the world in the front of the bare eyes of our eyes, but also the bare eyes of our government and their intelligence services. This must stop. We have the tools, we have the numbers. It's only a matter of discipline, to discipline ourselves and to ask for accountability. That's where I am today.
Talking about accountability then, Sir Rodney's asked, did every girl make it back from Little St. James, or did some mysteriously disappear, or did it go that far? So were there ways to even check that? I mean, could people disappear and we would never, ever know?
You'll be very surprised the amount of information when you start to dig in Jeffrey Epstein. You think Jean Luc Brunel is interesting? Jeffrey Epstein, Jean Luc Brunel is a small fish in the pond. He was serving a purpose, and that's what he was. How deep this purpose went, how deep is incriminated. That's what the investigation is looking into, trying to understand how much he made out of that and how much involved he was and who was behind him, supporting him and allowed him to do that. But the real interest, and the one that is really enigmatic in a certain way, where you never know whether he's a Mossad agent, or he's working for Bear Stearns, or simply is a math teacher, or this guy has so many cards to play, and it's actually quite intelligent, but I wouldn't say educated, but he is intelligent and is extremely cunning. So yes, the answer is yes, that some of the people have disappeared. I've seen that. I just wouldn't, be able to say that on the oath, but I can tell you from the research, some people seems to have disappeared, not only on Little St. James, but also in Switzerland. And that's all I'm going to say.
Just addressing a few things in the chat, then. Abdul asked me about the virus going around the world, and I had to delete all my videos about the virus off the channel because there are very strict rules about what you can and cannot say on YouTube. SD Salis has asked about Promise. Well, I've done a whole series on Robert Maxwell and Promise. If you look in the Epstein playlist, which is going to be in the description box below this video when the live stream ends, you can see there's 400 videos, and some are about Promise. And also Fred mentioned about the racism. We got the, before Maria Farmer was legally gagged, we did perhaps the last interview with her, and she just let loose on all the horrendous things, the conversations Maxwell, Epstein, Jean Luc Brunel had. Maxwell and Epstein and the other people they were associated with that she was around. I can't remember whether she referenced Jean Luc Brunel, but she just said how they were making jokes about poor people. They're really classist and racist and absolutely obscene. They even made a joke about Princess Di, how they were bragging about how they just picked on her and made her cry. These people were so cruel. It's beyond belief.
No, there is no. You see, this is a state of mind, and I think that their mind is extremely perverted by the stew of money that they were able to make in a short amount of time. But more importantly, really the kick for these guys is to get away with it, you know, because there is a sensation of superiority, of being able to say, look, these guys, they're inferiors, they're not like us. They are, you know, surrendering their power. They are surrendering the power to people like us so that we can tell them and we can abuse their kids, or we can steal their money, or we can avoid paying taxes. And the list is pretty long, you know. So this is a state of mind. This is a way of being. And I think that Mary, probably not Annie, but definitely Mary Farmer will be able to talk a lot, because she shared a lot of time back at Wexner's in New Albany. She will know a lot about these guys. And for those that have spent a little bit of time with Epstein within the close circle, whether it's the Alexander couple from South Africa, but also a lot of stuff like Gabrielle and so on. Some of them will speak, some of them will just remain loyal and trying to underplay what truly happened and what truly was going on, you know. So racism was part of it.
I've also got hours and hours of audio of Maria Farmer speaking to Whitney Webb. That's in the Epstein plates as well. So there's a lot more details in that one, as well as the one she did with me. All right. So what happened then when the U.S. Virgin Islands prosecutors subpoenaed Miles and Kathy Alexander, the South African couple, for documents and testimony?
Yes, basically the subpoena now has been reissued, but the first time they denied any comments about what was going on. There's still, again, this very aspect of loyalty going on with Jeffrey Epstein. He was extremely good. Anybody you spoke to that has worked with Jeffrey Epstein has maintained this kind of they all say it was like run like a family, you know. There was a complete trust, and real trust, whether it was in Paris, in New York, or in the Palm Beach mansion. He was really, really close to his employers, and he knew how to do that. He will pick up their bills. The mother will fall sick. He will pick up that bill. He was like a father figure, and he was there for them. So he knew how to buy that loyalty, that allegiance. He was very good at manipulating that. I'm sure there was some good aspect about him. I mean, obviously, we're always talking about him as the monster that has been depicted there. But probably some kind of a friendly and perhaps some kind of a, you know, maybe some good side of it. I do not know. I never met the guy, but from what I understand and from what I can see, there was still a lot of loyalty. And this couple, the South African couple, have remained very loyal to Jeffrey Epstein to a certain degrees. But now, as I said, they're going to have to explain themselves and explain the periods between 1999 and 2007. They're going to have to provide documents. They're going to have to provide under oath testimonies, and they are pushing the South African government to provide this judicial assistance, which they're entitled to. Now, whether the South African government is going to go along with that remains to be seen.
So in those subpoenas to the banks, there's a number of companies listed. Plan D owned Epstein's Gulfstream jet, Nautilus owned Little St. James, and Maple Inc. owned the New York mansion, Butterfly, to make all these multi-purpose wire payments. So is that just a fraction of the companies? And
well, it's a fraction, Shaun, because they're not only companies but individuals also have been subpoenaed. So I think a few links was made available yesterday to be able to really look into all the subpoenas and the history of subpoenas from the US VI, try to understand, because this is a process that started a while ago. I mean, we're talking about March, April, May, especially May 2020, where we're looking at subpoenas already coming out towards, you know, key people. When we look at the name of the companies, I mean, as you just say, you know, Plan D is really the big outfit based out of the United States Virgin Islands, and that particular Plan D's company, they own the Gulfstream jets and also the Gulfstream jet, which means the private jet of Epstein, but they also own Nautilus Incorporated, which in its own turn and its own right, and the islands of little St. James. And then further down, they also add, as you said, Maple Inc., which is also the company that owns the New York property of Jeffrey Epstein. And then the list is long. You mentioned Butterfly. Butterfly Inc. was already investigated during the scandal with Deutsche Bank. There was some wires, and that really was very suspicious. And they know that Butterfly was definitely a multi-purpose vehicle for wiring payments around the world. So that's what this subpoena is all about. And then you will find other people like Fidelity Investment, Charles Schwab, the bank Leumi, Wells Fargo, Northern Trust, Silicon Valley Bank. I mean, you name it. There is just, and they're basically doing what they're supposed to do. How far they're going to go with these subpoenas, this will remain to be seen. But I'll give you my personal opinion and my personal analysis about what I'm saying here. What I'm saying here is an attempt to get to the bottom of it and following the money and the wiring of this money, because the suspicion, obviously, of money laundering. They want to know where the money comes from. Was it are we talking about tax evasion there? Are we talking about dirty money? And then the second part of it is, what was the money used for? Who was coming onto Little St. James Island? Were they a sex trafficking ring? When you read the document, I've spent some time reading this document, and you can see the allegations, and more importantly, the assumptions. And these are government, these are legal entities making assumptions about what really happened on Little St. James, and they are not shy to talk about sex rings, sex trafficking, disgusting behaviors, and so on and so forth. I mean, there's 2 pages, especially in one of the in the subpoena, that describe the reason why they're going after these people. And I was, even myself, on the back foot. I was like, they're really going full whack with that, So very, very interesting, the choice of companies, the choices of outfits that Epstein owned or was involved with. And they're going very, very deep. I mean, you were talking about Leon Black, for instance. They're not only going after Leon Black, they are going after people that works with Leon Black. So they're going to third parties, Ewan. So this is going to last quite some time. We know that they have 30 days to provide answers to these subpoenas. So I think we're going to be living a very excited end of the year, Shaun.
Yeah, I mean, this case is just endless. Just when you think it's died down, another huge name, or there's another indictment, or it just blows right back up again and keeps going and going and going.
It's madness, and I can tell you, I wish I could further develop what I'm looking into it at this moment. There will be a time for that, but knowing what I know already, what we know that is available to the public, plus what I know, it's just difficult to go sleep at night. It feels like you're living in a world that you've been told works one way or that way, and it seems that we've been told a big lies. A lot of things not what they seems, or what our governments are telling us what it is. There's really a different story here. This famous construct that Eric Weinstein, that hedge fund manager in New York, was talking about, it's really this big constructs, it's all about conning. It's all about, construction. It's all about basically what we call in French connery, which is bullshit. This is what it's all about. It's this always these con things coming back at the forefront, because everything is a mirror. It's a smoking mirror. And when you start to really look on the other side, all you find is dirt, you find corruptions, you find dirty money, and you find really real sexual misconduct, misbehaviors. I mean, I think you have runs at the moment giving you some really unbelievable shows and talking about a dark web and so on. And what we are, learning from people like him is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I'm aware a little bit of it, working alongside investigators that are far deeper into the dark web, than me. I'm really looking into what really these pedophile rings, how does it structure, who's behind it, how far, the the rabbit hole goes, and it's definitely really deep. It's dirty and it's deep. And I think eventually, if we do manage to get some of the truth, I think you're going to be extremely surprised with what you're going to find out.
Well, the great thing about the Epstein case is that it has woke so many people up. When, people had Prince Andrew as this, esteemed person, and then they see just absolutely lying through his teeth, condescending, haughty, rude, just, and the things that he did has just blown that whole thing wide open. So who can you trust? Who can you trust? That's what people are asking in authority.
Yeah, ask David Icke. He'll tell you you can trust. He'll tell you all about it. He's gone through a lot as well. I mean, I feel sometimes, he's a bit older than I am, but I was the same back in France. I was opening my mouth. I thought that everybody was saying what I was saying, but no one really had a clue what was going on. And people, not to say they thought I was a crackpot, because I've always been articulated. I'm trying to substantiate what I'm saying, but clearly people were no wait for the, ready for the truth, and I think someone that put it so well is a gentleman called Michael Sion, which I absolutely adore. I think is a fantastic speaker and a great guy overall. It's great, a lot of books, and he said one thing. He said, if you're in the dark for so long and you come with a light and you put it in your face, the first reaction will be to look away, and definitely you don't want to hear any of that truth, and I think he really put it in a very, very, very explicit way. It's your people don't want to hear, because it's so hard. It's so hard when you've been, groomed in a certain way, fashioned in a certain way, and then suddenly someone, halfway down your life is telling you that everything is a lie. And this is what's really going on behind the curtains, behind this behind this golden bridge. This is what actually these guys are up to, because what else they're going to do? They have the money, they have the power. We have let them, we have given them the power, and they've allowed themselves basically to help themselves within the cake. And if you look at the cake, further away you are from the cake, from the table where the cake is, slower and smaller the size of the cake will be for you. We don't get shit, but closer you are to the power, closer you have access not only to what they have, but also to the information. So you need people from the inside. We need people that have spent time within this kind of circles of royals and the police and the government at the highest level, in the clergy, in every single establishment, to tell us what they know and how far and how bad it is. And we are doing it. A lot of people are doing it, and it's coming. It's going to pop at some stage, that's for sure.
So I said at the beginning, I always learn so much from you, Fred. And one of the most surprising things I've learned today from you is that the state of Ohio Inspector General, David Stewart, revealed in his files that Epstein was listed as a person of interest in the death of Robert Maxwell.
Yeah.
Please expand on that.
You believe that?
No.
Yeah, well, basically, this investigation went for quite some time. There's some people have spent 15 years just looking into it. Probably, yeah. I could mention a good friend, Fistrakis. He's probably the name to mention when talking about this investigation on Les Wexner, because this is the story of the worst of the worst. This is corruption, trafficking, mob, government, and then obviously, the connections are intercontinental. We are finding out that during their investigation, they're looking to Epstein. So how does it look into Epstein? They have to involve, obviously, the intelligence services, because Epstein was not in Ohio for a while. He spent a lot of time in different places, New York, Michigan, traveling a lot abroad, spent a lot of time in the UK, where obviously he was close to Robert Maxwell and Ghislaine Maxwell. But clearly the intel was there, and the FBI or whatever intel was, they were in touch with, I believe the FBI anyway, and CIA knew what Epstein was about. And they probably wonder, how come very soon after Robert Maxwell met Jeffrey Epstein, the guys end up, on the size of the boat, you know, in the Canary Islands, you know, it's they've asked the right questions, you know, because obviously this is an intelligence matter, and Epstein was under investigation, and he's been under investigation for a long time and by many, many different people. And we will go into that because I can tell you already that the French government was investigating Epstein way before he was actually arrested at Teterboro, New Jersey airport.
Wow, that's absolutely fascinating. All right, so we've also got that Epstein was protected by the Florida State Attorney Kershaw.
Shaun, can you give me 2 seconds? I just need to get some water. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'll just tell the audience that I have just put all of Fred's links in the description box below this video. They are live now. Fred's subs went up 200 or 300% after the live stream last week, and he's gonna do some stuff, get some English subtitles, get some English speaking stuff on that channel. He's also got his Twitter handle down there in the description box. So if you want to reach out to Fred, if you want to retweet this video and copy Fred's Twitter handle in, or send a message to Fred on Twitter, that is where he is most active, and he is receiving messages and he is retweeting people, because I've been seeing the praise come in all week. So his YouTube channel is at the top of the description box, and also his Twitter link is right below that.
Yes, I'm back now.
All right, so we're moving on to Florida State Attorney Barry Kisher and Mike Fiston. Do you want to tell us about them?
Yeah, well, Barry Creature is a creature. Yeah, his name is Creature, or I can't really pronounce it, so forgive me for that. But anyway, I think what's important to understand is the district attorney for the state of Miami was pretty much in charge to bring charges to Epstein, and to do that, obviously the legwork from Miami and Palm Beach police needed to be accurate, and they need to be really, really clear, because you are on the one side of the bridge. You don't want to get things wrong, if you know what I mean. Yeah. These are extremely wealthy people, so you know you don't want to create an embarrassment. So this needed to be investigated properly. And they did actually a thorough investigation. So, and some people really deserve credit for that, although, you know, many people didn't give them the credit. But someone like Michael Reiter, for example, the chief of police of Miami, really pushed really hard for the truth to come out, because I think he found out there's a lot of things going on in Palm Beach mansions, and these undergirls were coming, and the numbers were staggering already. So of course this has to attract the attention of the district attorney at the time, and he did that. And then when he saw that Barry Creature was actually downplaying the whole thing, and saying, like, minimizing and saying that, you know, we don't need to go that far, blah blah blah, and starting to already prepare people to understand that, you know, nothing's going to really happen to Jeffrey Epstein. And then Michael Reiter got actually quite pissed off, and to the point that he actually wrote a letter. I'll try to get my hand on this letter at some stage, but he wrote a letter to Barry Creature asking him to step down. He told him, he said, you got to step down, man, because you are definitely in the middle of a conflict of interest, because there is absolutely no reason for you to not, you know, process and prosecute Jeffrey Epstein with the full extent of the law. You got to go full whack on this guy. This guy's got to be behind the bar. He's a danger for society, a danger for our children. And yet again, we have one guy here that has been, you know, been put in power to kind of be used as a fence and protecting this rich and powerful, allowing them to basically get away with it. And I think Michael Reiter needed some credit for that. And what I can tell you is that there was a reopening of the investigation by the FBI. And the only reason why it was reopened because of Michael Reiter. He actually lost his job on that. He lost his job. He was close to retirement, but he lost his job because he went after Creature. And then he informed Mike Fiston, a former FBI task force supervisor, who was actually part of the task force in charge of reopening the inquiry on Jeffrey Epstein. And these guys basically, this is how the whole thing started when, obviously we all know the Alec Costa story. I've done some video on that. I mean, this guy's lies for breakfast, he's an embarrassment. But also, I would say that, I'll take this opportunity while I'm with you here, and we have some attention, to say that, you see, I have a lot of respect, obviously, for the Miami Herald and what Brown has done for this. I mean, it's unbelievable, how far she went with this and how far she's still going today. But yet again, when they are given the opportunity to participate in a press conference where obviously Acosta has to come and start to talk about what happened, with this sweetheart deal, this unbelievable plea deals, and he's explaining himself. And this guy, for literally 45 minutes, kind of light life through his teeth, and nobody is stopping him. No one is stopping him. No one is telling someone, come on, man, this is, you gotta, there's a level of bullshit that, that after a while, you gotta stop, you gotta stop bullshitting, insulting people's intelligence, because that's exactly what he does for 45 minutes. And for that, I wish I had a press card, because I would have stopped him on the spot. Because he needed to be put on the spot at that time, downplaying absolutely everything. You ask him a question, he's responding completely something absolutely irrelevant or not even relevance. And when he's asked about the intelligence link between Epstein and obviously the intelligence services, he's completely downplaying it and telling you basically to look away. I mean, these are people that are Secretary of State or that work for the judicial systems. I mean, these guys are absolutely compromised. They should put a letter of resignation right now and then leave when we still give them the time, because they're gonna be a reckoning. This guy's gonna owe us some answers, because lying enough, it's enough now. They're insulting our intelligence, truly, Shaun.
Yeah, there's good and bad in every profession, and you've highlighted some of the good there as well. And I also want to give credit to Joseph Recurry, who was a lead investigator, detective on the case. He was interviewing the victims and filing the police reports. And he basically said he knew what was coming, and he told his peers that, it was all going to get squashed, basically. And it was very frustrating for him. He knew his superiors would sell him out. And Joseph did die mysteriously in his early 50s. He was completely healthy, came completely out of the blue. So there's a lot of conspiracies around why he died. And we have done a few videos on the channel on Joseph Recurry. But yeah, some great people in law enforcement were trying to push this ahead. But if it's rotten at the top, they come up against that barrier and there's nothing that they can do.
This is Miami, Shaun. This is a place, and it has a long history of corruptions. And there's, even within the police itself. But again, as you said, there's some good elements, people that I see through the bullshit and understand that something is really not right and trying to do themselves. But again, if you push too hard, you're going to lose your job, and the other one's going to perhaps lose his life, So this is what you got to be prepared, when you get yourself into this kind of a crossroads. You have a big decision to make. How are you going to just shut up, and are you going to be protecting your income, protecting what makes your life comfortable and what makes you alive, or are you prepared to go all the way? And I think Ricari knew exactly that. What will happen at some stage if he pushed too far, and the same for Michael Reiter. They knew that. I mean, he was almost at a retirement, so I believe somehow he didn't care too much. He's got his pension, but at least they've tried their best, and one lost his life, the other one lost his job. It's sad, but Shaun, it's basically a story we've heard so long. Each time someone good, when a patriot is coming, to the rescue of society and doing actually his job, and somehow these people are never promoted. They are disposed of. It's sickening. It's really sickening. And it's time to stop.
We're almost at 2 hours. We're going to take some questions. So this is a good place to stop the chronology. In part 3, we're going to pick off with where Brunel is living in the Trump Tower in Manhattan. He's running out of cash, and Epstein gives him $1 million. There's a $1 million credit line, and there's an effort to create a partnership with Elite Model Agency, and that's where we're going to take it from when we go to part 3, and I'll organize that with Fred on camera in a minute, so you guys will know when that's coming. All right, the first question that's come in for you, Fred. Then we've just got about 10 minutes. We could do some questions within. So. What's your perspective on Dershowitz is the first question that's coming for you.
Dirty Witch. Dirty Witch is a professional liar. He thinks that the media is a public court of opinion, so he can use it to his advantage just in case he's going to be ending up behind the bars or on trial, for what he did. Again, I'm never going to make an accusation to as a lawyer, especially a guy like him, is a nasty piece of work, and I'm gonna let him deal with his nonsense. And I think he doesn't need my help to go down.
Yes.
That's all I'm gonna say, literally.
I've only ever had sex with my wife.
That's it.
Rebecca Sally.
Yeah, have you seen a picture of his wife?
No.
Okay.
Must be careful what we say, though. Rebecca Selly is saying, has Brunel been charged with anything?
No. 0.
Wow, that is absolutely mind-blowing.
0. And the closest that he ever got to any charges, there's actually no charges. The closest he has got to the authority was some kind of not even a subpoena, but some kind of he agreed to participate in Miami. I was at the time. He agreed to participate in a witness recorded testimonies where he kind of agreed to empty his bag. This was the time where Bradley and his court of lawyers, was starting to really basically take on the victims and starting to listen to these horrendous stories of abuse. And obviously they knew Jean Luc Brunel was definitely involved, since he was always with Jeffrey Epstein and they were going around, and obviously the girls were talking. So this is not something, people need to understand, we're not making these things up. This is not a couple of articles. These are girls, victims, survivors that are talking, and the name of Jean Luc Brunel keeps on popping out. He's still basically always in the middle of this sex trafficking ring. It's not just like he's a model scout and he happens to be there. No, he's a very proactive member of this operation, and his model agency has been used for that. So the only closest place that he's ever been is basically a sit in a room with a couple of lawyers. Even that, he hated Bradley, the guys that wrote the how do you call that, the Relentless Pursuit, and his second name evade me, but anyway, it's not important. I think everybody knows who I'm referring to. And he hated Jean-Luc Brunel, and Jean-Luc Brunel was totally, absolutely hated him as well. So actually the last meeting that he went to, Bradley could not actually get into the room. He didn't want to meet and sit down with him. So anyway, he agreed to a second meeting. He said, I'm going to go to Manhattan. I'm going to sit down with the prosecutor. I'm going to empty the bag, tell you all about Epstein and so on. And then the next thing probably is coming out of that room, he probably went to the first airport he found and then flee out of the United States. And we know about 6 years later that he would actually blame Jeffrey Epstein for that. He will say that he actually left America because Jeffrey Epstein told him that, it's would be very compromising, if he was subpoenaed in the United States, and if obviously he was forced to tell everything that he knew. I think simply Epstein didn't trust him at all under questioning and told him, bat out, get out of the United States, go to Asia, go to do what you do best in Europe, and then come back when the, obviously the heat is down, and that's exactly what he did. Now he blamed Epstein for that. Wow.
So this next question, and I'll give a short answer first, and I'll hand it over to you. Pantheon Rockstars asked, do we think the Clintons will ever get questioned stemming from Ghislaine Maxwell's trial? So my perspective is that Ghislaine Maxwell will never have a trial, that there will be a plea bargain. The trial date could easily get moved while there's ongoing plea bargain negotiations. And when names like the Clintons come up, royal names, national security will come in and say, look, give her a plea bargain. She's going to sign here, do this many years. These names are never going to be spoken about in court, because if they're spoken about in court, then certain government agencies need to take action. So that's how the Clintons, I believe, will be protected. Well, what's your perspective, Fred?
The perspective that I have on that is probably we will have the opportunity to talk about it in a different video. But there is two big crime family syndicates in the United States. Clinton is one of them. You've written about it. And there's just so many stories. And these people have been doing it for so long. It's almost insulting to anybody that has faith in their law enforcement in the United States. It's absolutely insulting for the good police people, for those that are actually really doing a good job out there. And I want to get rid of these parasites that have infested the CIA, the NSA, and all these three letters acronym intelligence services. But the second one that nobody really talks about is the Donald Trump crime syndicate.
That's hanging in a balance right now, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. You see, this is the beauty of it. I've unfortunately, I know some of you will disagree with me, and that's fine. I'm getting older now, so I can take it. But
going to cause the chat to go crazy. I'm
not believing any of these buggers. I'm not believing any of these candidates. 30 years ago, I've learned fundamental rules is that, you got to divide in order to be able to manage or control the rest or the bigger part. And that's, I cannot believe in the principle or whereby we are voting, expressing our ideas for a candidate that's going to do exactly what he promised us. This has never occurred in the history of politics, and this has never occurred since, So how can we be gullible to the point thinking that we actually are being given a choice to elect someone that's going to do what he said he does or what we would like him to do? It just doesn't work that way. And people are unfortunately conditioned to believe that, one is better than the other. And that's what is about dividing. And we are falling for it over and over. What happened in France, for example, under this, this principle is that we destroyed the left side, we destroyed the right side, then there was no more left and right. And then we have basically to our rescue Emmanuel Macron. I mean, when you go down so low in the choices, you're just wondering next time where and how this country would be governed. And I'm saying to my American pals and friends, guys, don't fall for it. They're both the same. These are the same people. These are criminals. Let's get them out of the White House and then bring some decent people inside, people that had truly their family, your family at heart, and that's going to take care of your country, your real country first, not their wallet first.
There we go, French Revolution. And Howard Zinn, I think he said, the illusion of choice was how he described the political system. We're at the 2-hour mark, so I'm going to just pull my calendar up here. And the viewers are going to be delighted to know that next Tuesday, we've got one of your all-time favorites back, Charlie Robinson. He's got a new book out, and we've got a whole playlist on him about the Clinton crime family, partners in evil, Maxwell, Epstein, Bill Clinton, talking about procuring kids out of Haiti. And Charlie really gets into details on those subjects. His research is brilliant. And he has an equally shiny head as me and Fred. So if you're into the shiny head interviews, please come along. That's going to be next Tuesday, I imagine, at around this time, perhaps 6 or 7 p.m. I've not confirmed it with Charlie. So that does then leave Thursday or Wednesday. Are you free next Wednesday or Thursday, Fred?
Yeah, let me look at my calendar. Yes, I'm free. Let's unpack.
All right, let's put you down as Thursday, the 12th of November. Let's say 6 p.m. again. We are going to take off where I said a minute ago with Jean Luc Brunel in the Trump Tower. And to let the people know how detailed and long this series is going to be, Fred sent over 14 pages of notes for this evening, and we're only halfway through page 4. But I love it. This is what we want. We want all the detail of all the little things that we've not heard before. We're sick of hearing the same old stuff on this case. And in the very beginning, I said to find out the truth about Escobar, I had to get all these words translated from Spanish, and Fred is doing the same for us from the French-speaking world of Jean Luc Brunel. So thanks again, Fred.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Shaun. It's been a pleasure.
And if you're watching this, then please support Fred. Even if you don't speak a lick of French, please go down and subscribe to his channel. And if you want to send him a message, the Twitter handle is right down there in the description box.
Just one note, Shaun, before you let me go. I've actually worked on my English subtitles. So I've already about 5-6 videos already that I've done that have English subtitles. So I work on that. I've left the Robert Maxwell and so on because these are like 45-minute videos, and really this English subtitle, if you want to do it properly, it takes quite some time. So, but I will do them eventually. But I believe by the end of this week, early next week, all the Jean Luc Brunel series will be having the English subtitles available, for captions.
Yeah, as you're working on that, would it be possible for you to create a separate playlist on your YouTube channel for the English-speaking world? Oh, looks like we've lost Fred. Fred has frozen. So I'll send him that request by email. And it was a good time to freeze, Fred. Adios. And if you are watching still, in the description box are the links to the Epstein playlist, links to the True Crime podcast, links to the Royal Family playlist. We've got hours and hours of endless stuff, 400 videos on the Epstein case now on this channel. 2 true crime podcasts a week, ranging from 1 hour up to 4 hours. Fred is back with us briefly as we're saying our goodbyes. Also in the description box are links to all my socials and the donation links as well if you want to support the channel. Anything else you'd like to say in conclusion, Fred?
No, all I'm going to say is that let's look at the big pictures. Shaun has, I think, really put the finger on it as well, is that this is really big. This is a massive construct, international, intercontinental networks ramifications. And we need any help we can. I'm speaking to those that are in the know, some people that are maybe watching this video and that have been witness to horrific crimes, that are aware of what was going on at the time. Do not be scared of coming forward. This is our opportunity to bring justice to everyone, to these young girls, because they were not punished one, they were punished for the rest of their life. And if we're not going to stick behind them and then really putting pressure on our governments, then it tells a lot about us and who we are. So let's fight together. Thank you.
So how do you say good night and sweet dreams in French?
In French, salut, bonne soirée, faites de beaux rêves. Voilà.
Salut, bonne soirée. What? Good